what is his, and you will be rewarded. Give what is his, and you will be rewarded. Interesting. I mean, I find it not difficult, Santino, when you have to give something which is not yours. I mean, to give away, let's say, your Christmas gift, let's say the drone away, that might be difficult. But if I tell you, Santino, can you give away the EV, whatever, the leg of Kuya? Can you give it to him? Will that be difficult? Chances are it will not be difficult, right? Why? It's not yours. And this is our point today. God is telling us to give something which is really not ours. So why is it difficult? Today we're looking at Philippians chapter 4. And we're really at the end of the book. And we've seen that all throughout the book of Philippians, what do we notice? Paul was very affectionate, was very attached, was very close to the church in Philippi. And all of a sudden here, as we look into it, it's like a movie, like a trilogy movie. Diba, when you watch a trilogy movie, sometimes at the end of the movie you ask, oh, what happened at the ending? Why was this man acting this way? Why is he behaving that way? And all of a sudden in the end, it reveals, oh, the reason why he was acting that way was because that child was his son. All along, I never realized that child was his son, or something like that. And here, as we look at the endings of the book of Philippians, we see why Paul was very close, was very affectionate, was very concerned with the church of Philippi. And it's because not only was it because the church in Philippi was the church that he founded, but it's because of the faithfulness of the people in Philippi. That's why there's always a deep sense of trust, a strong sense of family, of unity, of connection. Because here we see that it is the church of Philippi that supported him from the very start. And that's 10 years. As you well know, Paul was having a hard time saying thank you to them. Because he was afraid that if he says thank you and thank you to them, the church might misconstrue it as asking for donation, asking for more. I remember recently my wife told me, oh Bobby, did you receive the letter of Pastor so-and-so? So I've received it, but I haven't read it. Oh, because Bob, but I read it, it's as if they need money. And at that time, that's very prevalent. A lot of people were doing this for the money. And if you remember our last lesson, people were accusing Paul. You know what, Paul? The problem with you is you're trying to get money from them. That's why you're serving them. Go to Philippians chapter 4. And we're looking at chapter 4, verse 15 to 18 today. It says in verse 15, you yourself know, Philippians, that at the first preaching of the gospel, after I left Macedonia, no church shared with me in the manner of giving and receiving. And if you look at the Greek here, the emphasis is in the no church. Not even one church. Among all the church and among all the people that I helped, none even cared to help. And that statement was a half-truth. Because here, it was a half-truth. And the reason why Paul said no church and emphasizing the no church was to strengthen the point that but you alone. There was no church. I was texting one of the friend of my mom. We were texting. Not really. In fact, I never really met the man, but we were texting. And he was telling me, but this is the friend of my mom. Kinakamusta yung mom ko. He was telling me, you know what, Bob? And this guy is kind of wealthy guy. I would guess he's in the Forbes list, right? And he was texting me, you know what, Bob? Such is life. When you're famous, you have friends, a lot of friends. When you're rich and famous, you have really plenty of friends. But once you lose your wealth, no one wants to even be near you. Such is our life. He said, I was surprised when he said, and we're not even close. But that's true. And the thing here is, in that context, during the time of Paul, charity was not common. During the Roman and Greek times, you helping other people is not very common. They have a certain hardness of heart. They're very callous to the need of the people. That's why their common game at that time was what? Gladiators. Fighting against one another, or fighting against a lion, and they would cheer. So seeing suffering, seeing blood was nothing. It wouldn't move their heart. They're very callous. And at that time, the church, at that time, the society, they don't care about the poor. They don't have hospitals at that time. They don't have orphanages. That's why women at the time, if they're widowed, they have two choices. They'll either end up as a prostitute, or they'll end up as a beggar. That's why, what did Jesus say? Take care of what? Widows and orphans. Because at that time, it's to each his own. No one really cared. No one will look after you even if you starve. You remember that in Luke chapter 16, that rich man and Lazarus? The Lazarus who was lame and was sitting there, and he was buried and no one even dared to bury him. I was asking myself, what happened to the family members? What happened to them? Manyari, he was lame. No one cared. And that Samaritan man, remember, on that hill, people were just the injured man on that hill. People were just passing by. The priests, right? The Jews, and the only one that helped him was the Samaritan, because at that time, no one really cares for your well-being. And that is why this act of the church in Philippi was really noticeable. Even among the Christian community, sabi, no other church except you. Do you see that? Do you see that strength? Why Paul was very affectionate with this church. They were the only one. The church in Philippi, may utang na loob dun sa taong nag-share ng gospel sa kanila. Now that the church has Now that the guy that helped them, the guy that shared the gospel to them, is now in dire straits, they send help. I remember I studied in the province, and when growing up, the school that I entered into always asked donation from my parents. Donate this, donate that, donate that. In fact, I was telling my wife, in that school, I have a plaque there eh. Kasi yung water, yung water sa water fountain, my dad donated that eh. So, I don't know if it's in memory. Basta, my name was there. And the thing there is not only that, the whole campus, the whole land was donated by my grandparents. So in a sense, you would think may utang na loob dapat, right? On them. I remember a few years back, defined as mga 20 years ago, I wanted to meet the principal of the school because I wanted to do business already with that school. The principal, who happens to be the president, who happens to be a nun, doesn't even want to speak with me. They didn't afford me even a meeting. Wow! Grabe how time flies, right? People, they don't care. And people, what happened was, some of the church that he helped, or some of the people that he helped, are even slandering him, are even maligning him. Remember at the start of this study, the people in Rome, right, the Christians there were against Paul because they were afraid that Paul would take the leadership role. And not only are they not helping him, they were also ridiculing him. In fact, we learned, according to history, it's those Christians that conspired to put him to death. And Paul says here, but you yourself also know, Philippians, that at the first preaching of the gospel, after I left Macedonia, no church shared with me in the matter of giving and receiving, but you and you alone. I love you. Thank you very much. And he says that with deep gratitude. Especially, people, they tend to help other people who can help them. They tend to serve people. They tend to be nice to people that they can benefit. That's very common. Sabi nga, if there was a kid drowning right in the pool, chances on the beach, few people would really rush and save that kid. But if the people in the shore found out it's the daughter of Bill Gates, I'm sure everybody would be rushing there to save her. Right? So that Bill Gates would have utang na loob sa kanya and maybe might return the favor. But what favor can you get out of Paul, who is in prison and who is about to be put to death, could be facing a death sentence? There's really no return. You don't expect a return on investment in this thing. And Paul was saying here is that no other church shared with me. The word shared there comes from the word koinos, which comes from the word what? Koinonia. Remember? Fellowship? We studied that. The concept of fellowship among believers. We're in what? What happens to you affects me. What happens to me affects you. That is what koinonia is all about. There is a real connection between what's happening to each one of us. And a lot of times, the problem nowadays, in fact, just this morning, it's hitting on me that the Christian church